Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to This Week in Travel. For those of you who remember who we are, my name is Gary Arndt, coming to you live from my mom's basement in lovely Wisconsin. With me again, now usually when we have these long gaps in episodes, it's usually my fault because I'm off somewhere. But not this time. This time it's Chris's fault because he's been the guy traveling so much. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. I'm home. I'm home for like 2 weeks.
So I think you've been to more places than I've been this year.
5 continents.
Wow, Chris, that's impressive.
Since February.
That's better than me. I've only been to 2. So
Don't
you've been you've been to Spain, you've been to Morocco, you've been to Thailand.
Right.
You just took a trip to Alaska.
Right.
Where else have you been?
Cruised South America from Buenos Aires to Santiago, Chile, around the Horn.
I didn't even know you did that.
Wow. Oh, yeah. It's been an interesting year.
Excellent.
Are you tired?
Today, yes. In general, from the travel, no.
That inquisitive voice you're hearing is Jen Leo. How are you doing, Jen?
Good morning, everybody. I'm still in Carlsbad, but I am recording, for those of you watching our video, I am recording from a room you've never seen before. This is our hallway.
And oddly enough, it's a room in some sort of pocket dimension because I'm also in California and it's evening where I am. So that tells you how far away Jen has gone.
No, but I am off to Italy next week. So that's exciting.
What are you doing in Italy?
We are having a multi-generational family vacation with my cousins and uncles. And flying into Rome, we rented a villa just outside of Siena, so we'll be tootling around there for a little bit, and then I'm going to go up to London afterwards.
If you went glamping with your multi-generational vacation, I think you'd hit all the buzzwords.
Only if it's disruptive.
Only if it was a multi-generational glamping staycation, I think. Which may be our title for this week.
Our guests on the show this week, for the first time on the show, please welcome Cody and Katie Stevenson from the BRP Podcast. What does BRP stand for?
It's Big Rigs and Pancakes.
And explain what those two things have to do with each other.
Well, we actually just launched the podcast today, this morning. The first episode was launched. And the story behind the name is actually going to be in one of the episodes, and so we don't want to give it away yet. It's kind of a secret.
No one listens to this show, so don't worry about it.
But Gary, the real reason we're having them on is because they traveled cross-country in a teeny tiny trailer under the hashtag #TinyTravel. And they live streamed and meerkatted their way across the country while doing this tiny travel, and so that's why I wanted to have them on to share their adventure with us.
All right, and we'll get to that in a bit, but first let's go through a couple of news stories this week. This one shocked me. The TSA...
I knew immediately where he was going.
TSA, my favorite government three-letter agency, by the Department of Homeland Security's own stats, missed 95% of the weapons that they tried to get through security when they checked. And I didn't see it written, but I'm pretty sure they got all the water bottles, though. The director
I've gotten
of the TSA...
through with the water bottle before, though, actually. So
well, then the terrorists have won, Chris.
Yeah.
Good job. Are you guys shocked by this?
I was surprised. I thought it was going to be, it's an outrageous number.
I think I was a little surprised by 95%. You in particular have talked about security theater for a while, that a lot of the things that they're doing really don't have anything to do with security. But at 95 was, that is the kind of thing that gets you a invitation to resign, probably. The thing is, I don't know that changing the head of security is necessarily going to change anything unless they make some radical changes when a new head of the TSA is appointed. So that will be interesting to see.
Katie, Cody, does this shock you?
Not really. I mean, like Chris said, 95% is pretty high, but I really wasn't that shocked when I read the article. It seems to be the norm over the last decade. We keep hearing stories like this.
Yeah, the percentage is a little bit high from what I would have expected too.
The previous statistics on this that I had read was that 60% of everything goes through. But this just makes the math a little easier, because now whenever they talk about the number of guns or whatever they confiscate every week, you can just multiply by an even 20 to get the actual number that are actually getting on the planes every week, which means that there's like over 1,000 loaded guns every week on planes that are flying in the U.S.
That makes me feel safe.
That's scary.
Yeah,
Well,
so pretty much like every flight you go on, there's probably something on it with those numbers.
now I heard this story first on the radio, and the interviewer, the talk show, the morning talk show host that was talking about it, made a great point. He said that because they were in an authority position somewhat, they probably had the confidence to get to, they had a certain air about them. He said if it was really terrorists who were actually hiding a bomb or some kind of explosive, that they might have been able to give off some clues, some insecurities, or something that the TSA would have actually seen. But these people were walking through pretty confidently and not afraid.
I'm not sure that they're trained to look for that. I mean, that's one of the big complaints the real security experts have been talking about for a while, is that it's not clear that the security training has been focused on that. And that's
okay.
And, you know, the people who are like LL and Israel, which is supposed to be really good at this, that is what they look at. They're looking for things out of the norm in that way, but it's not clear that we even do that in the TSA training to the degree that we should. So I'm not sure that I buy that story. I think you just try to give them an out.
No, we're not talking about Sherlock Holmes. We're talking about mobile homes. And the TSA is not designed to find terrorists. They're designed to find weapons. And that's the big difference between what Israel does and what the U.S. does.
Right.
They have a checklist of things, and their job is to go through that checklist. And the thing you have to remember is, since they've started this, there's never been a terrorist they've caught. None. They found weapons, but never any malicious person that was trying to attack an airplane. So anytime they've ever found anything, it's been a false positive. 100% of everything they found. Because it's so unlikely. So yeah, I don't think they're trained for that, and I don't think they're really that concerned, because the threat of it's very low. And if something should ever happen, God forbid, they can say, well, we followed procedures, and that's really all anyone cares about. That's why the TSA exists, is to give politicians an out to say, well, we did something. I'm a bit cynical about the whole thing. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's going to be a new person that's like, well, I think we're just not being jerks enough to people. We need to confiscate more breast milk and feel more people up. Then we'll make sure to get 100% of all the weapons that are going through.
I think if the new guy is going to make a difference, you're going to know within 30 days that there's a new sheriff in town, and that he's going to be talking about really changing the way things work, and I don't think that's going to happen.
One of the articles I read about this said that prior to 9/11, when it was private, like each airport would just hire their own security, the rates of finding weapons when they did tests like this was way higher. Like it was over 50%. And it's interesting that we're spending all this money, we've put all this effort into it, and it's actually gotten worse, like significantly worse. But I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this subject pretty much every other episode from now until the end of podcasting.
That was end of podcasting, I think, was 2-3 years ago.
Well, it's come back. The next end of podcasting.
It's not quite dead.
This next story from our friend Chris Elliott, interesting. I've heard about this before. It talks about the unpublished policies on airplanes or airlines for taking pictures from planes. And they had two examples here. One where somebody was just taking a picture on the airport before they entered the plane, and the person at the gate went nuts and said, "Oh, you're a security threat," and blah blah blah. And he showed the picture, and there was another case as well where a guy was with his family, and evidently, it's private property, and airlines have the right to do this, and I think a lot of people are not aware of this fact. I think we had a story may have probably over a year ago, of somebody who took a picture inside an airplane during a flight, and they just wanted to show like the back of the seat or something, and were demonstrating, and like United came down on them for taking a picture inside the plane.
Okay, but do you notice
Although
that
that's
nobody
pretty
ever,
rare.
nobody ever comes?
Seat Guru has a section of their site where people take pictures of the seat all the time. Sorry, Jen. I cut you off
That's
again.
all right. What about Johnny Jett? How many times does he take pictures of this per week?
But the thing is, they could bust him on it.
They could. But it doesn't happen very often. I think you've got to get the flight crew in the wrong mood on the wrong day. I've been taking pictures more and more these days, almost on every plane ride out the window of the scenery, now that I can have my cell phone on during takeoff and landing. So,
nice segue, Chris.
Katie and Cody, have you guys ever just taken a picture out the window of a plane?
Oh yeah, tons of times.
Definitely. I've taken video of storms I've seen in the distance and everything. Sunsets, all of it.
I think everybody does that, and I think it's basically just there, like, if you do something that makes the airline look bad, that they can use it against you, or tell you to stop doing it or something like that. And the other thing in Chris's article that I thought was interesting is the notion of, "Oh, I don't feel safe," I think is sometimes overused by flight attendants and other airline personnel as just sort of a, "I don't want to deal with you" wild card that they can just kind of use on anybody. Take a picture, it's like, "Oh, that's safety." And because you can't really challenge anybody on a plane, they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Now, I've been stopped in, I think it was Piccadilly, no, sorry, it was one of the train stations in London, Victoria Station, for taking pictures by security. And that was, close enough to when there were security problems in London that basically somebody taking pictures was assumed to be suspicious. And I've seen that sort of thing happen before. And I think we'll always have that, just depending on what kind of mood security things are in at any given time. I was looking to see if I could find it. I remember at one point on cruise travel, if you actually looked at the red tape for some particular cruise that I was on, and their liability, they basically didn't permit you to have cameras on the ship. And I tried to see if I can find that anymore, and I bet it's not there anymore. Oh, sorry. No tools of the trade, household goods, presents and other property or others, jewelry, money, cameras, documents, valuables, or any description, including but not limited to such articles, are described, shall be carried except and subject to terms of a special written contract or bill of lading. So everybody who goes on a cruise, and this is the Carnival.com ticket legal notice, is not allowed to have cameras.
Right.
Yeah. It's somebody's lawyers, right?
I mean, there's a lot of things like that, and I remember I've gotten a lot of contracts that I've dealt with companies personally where you can tell the legal department gets it, and the legal department has absolutely no concern or care about business decisions whatsoever. It's just protect themselves at all cost, and should Carnival ever bust someone for having a camera, they would probably have to retract the policy immediately.
Yep. Well, I actually just had one where I have an upcoming advertiser coming on Amateur Traveler, and I went through their purchasing department, and we got into, so that they could purchase, a few episodes of Amateur Traveler. Did I have, and here are the 3 different types of insurance that I'm supposed to have as an independent contractor. Like, basically, do I have really good car insurance? I'm not sure why that's related to purchasing advertising on my podcast, but it looked like for a while they were like, well, it's our parent company makes us do it, and then somebody who saw reason, came into the process and said that's just ridiculous, don't worry about it. But you run into this all the time. We have too many lawyers.
We do, and when the revolution comes, they will be the first ones against the wall. One more news story. This is also from our friend George Hobica, USA Today. It raises the suggestion of flight attendants rewarding passengers for good behaviors. Now, we've talked about a lot of stories on this show about flight attendants and kicking people off planes and such. Do you guys think this would be a good idea if you help someone, or you otherwise showed exemplary behavior as a passenger, that they could somehow reward you in some small way, maybe with frequent flyer miles or a drink or whatever?
Yes,
I think some flight attendants already do, but making it a more official policy, I think, would be great.
I think if it's an official policy, people might be more inclined to behave better in general. If they've already been doing it, I've never heard of it. I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it where somebody, even going back tens of years, where somebody gets basically snuck a champagne bottle or something like that, or a free drink or whatever, because they were the one who helped settle the problem with the noisy customer or whatever. I was on a flight recently where somebody just couldn't get over the fact that his bag was not going to be directly above him and was making all sorts of problems. And I thought, the person who said, I think there was somebody who said, never mind, I'll move my bag, you put yours there, just just shut up. Basically, just trying to solve the situation. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, of course, there's less that I think there's a little less that they can do nowadays than they used to be able to. But I've even seen where the person who's making the noise about wanting to not being able to sit next to such and such a person or whatever, we've had some of those stories lately, that they take the other person and upgrade them to first class, to settle the situation. So yeah, they have some latitude. I just don't know that they have that much.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's win-win for the flight attendants, for the passengers, for everybody. It makes your day better. If everybody's positive, it's a positive day.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to encourage, because there's a lot of people that can be jerks on airplanes, and you can't get away from them. And hopefully it encourages them to be nicer people. But like Chris said, I've seen a lot of flight attendants take passengers and move them to first class in very similar situations, or people that were just nice and they had the open seats.
I don't think it's a bad idea, but I don't know if this would ever become an official policy, because when that happens, I guarantee you, like a week or two later, someone is going to flip out because they think they did something nice and didn't get rewarded, and then they're going to demand their reward. And it should, and really, this should just be something you do because that's what you do. And the moment it becomes a policy, then you're going to get people that demand stuff.
I can see that.
I think it's just good. In general, too, employees are more satisfied, despite the industry, when they are more empowered. And this sort of policy, if you had it, whether you talked about it or not, would raise morale among flight attendants.
All right. Let's do one more news story before we move on. I thought this was kind of
interesting. Did you say that the last time?
He did say that, but something just caught his eye, and I'm curious which it was.
The story from USA Today about cruise ships having surprise destinations.
Yes.
So Jen, I take by your raising of the hands, you would do this.
I was so excited about this news item, and I thought I would be the one who would want to do this. This would make cruising even more interesting to me. And
my wife would hate this.
And then I looked at the price tag. It's $6,000 a person, double occupancy, for a 10-day cruise, which, even though the destinations were wonderful locations in Greece and Turkey where I didn't know how to pronounce them or have not heard of some of them, it boiled down to $1,200 a day. Sorry, that's too steep for me.
But the concept of a surprise cruise.
Yes, very exciting.
Even if, like, you left in New York, and then it's like, oh, we're going to Newark, and then they just stay there for 5 days.
Even if they did that up and down the coast of California, I'd be thrilled.
For $6,000?
My wife would totally not go for that. I'm not even allowed to surprise her with a vacation. The whole thing with, honey, pack your bags, I won't tell you where we're going to go, wouldn't work in my house.
Are you serious, Chris? For all the traveling that you've done, you can't just say, life jacket,
It's a controlled thing.
Outdoor hiking, plus a dinner out, and then
Yep.
she'll know what to pack?
Nope. Wouldn't fly.
I would love it.
I'm a really spontaneous person, and I like doing stuff like that. But then I started thinking about it, and I don't know if I could handle being out on the open water, not knowing where I'm going.
Well, you're always near shore. I think a cooler one.
I find that sometimes by the time I get out on open water, I'm so clueless anyway that it really would be the same. I don't know if I'd notice a difference.
Yeah, true.
What is it, Tuesday? Where are we again?
So Cunard has a ship that goes from New York to Southampton, and it's like a week. You cross the ocean, come back. How cool would it be, though, if you get in New York and it's like, okay, we're going to Europe, but we're not telling you where. It's like you could wind up in England, you could wind up you go to Barcelona, you go to Italy. That would be more of a crapshoot.
It's kind of hard to book your next, part of your trip if you don't know where you're going to end up, though.
Yeah, no pain, no gain. It'd be the mystery repositioning cruise.
Hey, Gary, you know where it would be good for? Remember last year when you did all that island hopping?
Yeah.
Do you think it would be good for down there? Do you think there are just so many ports down there that would be a good one to do surprise port
that's where, when I first read the headline, that's where I assumed they were doing it, is the Caribbean. Because you could leave Fort Lauderdale and you could go, Bahamas, St. Martin. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different places you wouldn't know the route. That being said, they're all kind of, with some exception, they're all kind of the same.
The boat I saw the pictures of the ship, and everything looked kind of new and nice and modern. Maybe they need to do it on an older ship in another destination where we're talking $200 a night per cabin.
They could. I mean, my thing about the repositioning cruise is actually it's only half a joke. My last flight across, when I flew to Europe for T-Bex, I hated that flight so much. I sat there, I'm like, if I have the opportunity, I would rather sail to Europe than fly. And that's not even a joke, because as long as you have the time, you arrive without jet lag. The worst cabin in a ship is probably better than a first-class seat, because we go nuts over like, oh my God, this has a little cabin, and it's like, yeah, that's like a dorm bed in a hostel. It's the same size. But when you're flying, it's luxury, and when you're on the ground, it's horrible. You could, walk around, and it would be a much better experience, I think, assuming you have the time, of course. And I would totally do that if it was an option.
Gary, are you going on the T-Bex cruise?
Not that I know of yet.
Chris, are you?
I am told that I'm probably not by the boss.
Gotcha.
I'm planning to be gone for a fair amount in October, and one more trip away may not work.
Got it.
Oh, that boss.
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about somebody else.
No, she who must be obeyed.
Oh, that boss. That's the thing. I was going two bosses before that boss.
No, we're talking about Voldemort. We're not supposed to mention his name. All right, enough of that. Let's talk to Cody and Katie, because they're the guests on the show, and I think they have kind of an interesting story. Why don't you guys give us the background for how this trip started and what made your trip different?
Well, I was in California for my last job consulting for about 2 years, and Katie had moved out there with me, so we could be together and hang out and explore the high desert and the Sierras and everything. And we ended up getting a small 5x10 cargo trailer that was converted to an off-grid self-sustaining expedition trailer that we took all over Death Valley, all over the Sierras. And right about that time, the live streaming app Meerkat came out, and we were streaming a lot, and we got a really big following on there. And everybody knew we were coming back to Pennsylvania, and we would be driving across country and hitting a lot of national parks and stuff, so they all asked us to stream it. And Novatel Wireless reached out to us and sponsored all of our data and made it happen, so we did it.
So, okay, the Meerkat thing explains how Jen found you.
Yes.
That all makes sense now.
Oh, you didn't figure that out right away?
Okay, but explain the layout. I mean, 10 by 5. Compare that to
A prison cell.
Yes. How many prison cells is 10 by 5? And also, what'd you say? What?
Half of one.
So, but also explain to them the layout.
That's about the size of one prison cell in my experience.
Explain to them, like...
Which is an odd sentence.
Explain to them the setup of where the kitchen was, where the bed was, and also who your traveling companions were, who you had to share this space with every night.
Sure. The kitchen was actually behind the trailer, so it was like our headboard for our bed. Our inside of the trailer, there is 2 couches side by side that fold into a queen-size bed, and we were actually traveling with our 2 Siberian Huskies. One is 70 pounds, and the other one is 50 pounds. It was very, very cozy.
But very warm at night, because we stayed in a lot of mountainous areas, so, smashing together kept us warm.
See, and I thought you were going to say you were also traveling with the Ecuadorian maid, and that was just, I just wasn't sure how that was going to work.
But no, it was definitely interesting trying to fit 2 large Huskies and both of us inside of a small 5x10 trailer. But we made it work, and it was a lot of fun. Very unique experience, and we're ready to get back out there and travel some more.
Longer.
So your MiFi was sponsored, but how often did it work for the live streaming? Because live streaming on Wi-Fi is really tough. I'm experiencing that while I'm traveling. Sometimes I have all the best intentions to stream, and then I get to a place and it's just not strong enough.
We didn't have a lot of problems outside of what I would have expected. I would say we probably streamed 60 to 65% of the drive of the trip and where we went. Our biggest issues were southern Utah was really hard. Going by coming up from the Grand Canyon to Bryce Canyon, and then we snaked our way through the mountains up to Salt Lake City, and Utah was by far the worst. But besides that, we didn't have a big problem. And then when we got to Kansas, we stopped in Kansas. I grew up on a lake in the middle of nowhere in Kansas, so we went to visit my parents. And we knew that they don't get service on Verizon there. So we spoke to Novotel, and they sent us an antenna booster. And my cell phone by itself had 1X. And once I put the booster on, we had 3 bars of 4G LTE, so we were good.
Well, when you talk about southern Utah, I remember the last time I was through southern Utah, spinning through the radio dial. You remember that back when we used to listen to the radio, and spinning all the way through and finding nothing.
Yeah.
You're kind of out there where the buses don't run at that point, just north of Grand Canyon, for instance.
Yeah, and when we left, because we left Lake Powell, we stayed at Lake Powell the night before we shot up to southern Utah and Bryce Canyon and Zion and everything. And I would say almost instantly after getting over the Utah border and almost all the way to I-70 and then to I-15, it was just almost no service, like you said. We went hours driving through the mountains with no service in Utah.
A lot of karaoke.
No, I did a trip out west several years ago, and I recall, the same thing. The only difference was I had a cell phone with AT&T, and then I had my iPad, which was on Verizon. And I remember Verizon being way better than AT&T, primarily because I think the frequency they use. I don't know what Novotel does, but I know that when I see, even though I don't use Verizon anymore, mainly for international travel, when I see their maps, I always kind of understand now kind of what they mean by their coverage.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we were on Verizon coverage. Novotel Wireless is the patent holder for the MiFi device, which is carried by all major wireless networks.
So, where were some of the places you stopped along the trip, and what were your favorite ones? You said you stopped at a lot of national parks.
Yeah, we left California and stayed outside of Las Vegas our first night, and then we shot south to Laughlin, and ended up making it over to Williams, Arizona, and we slept at the Kaibab National Forest outside of Grand Canyon. Yeah, that was really nice. I think we were about 7,000 feet elevation out in the middle of the forest, and it got pretty chilly that night, but it wasn't too bad. With the trailer has propane heat and everything, so we were good. And then took Katie up to the Grand Canyon for her first time to see that, and hung out there for a while, and was really happy to see Katie's
excitement.
Yeah, her excitement when she got out and looked at it for the first time.
It was a bucket list item. I was finally able to cross it off. It was amazing. That was a good
Well, and
day.
you were at the uncrowded side. The North Rim gets, I think it's 10% of the tourism that the South Rim gets.
Oh, we were
somewhere
on the
like that.
South Rim.
Oh, you went from Las Vegas to the South Rim?
No, we didn't make it all the way to Vegas. We made it right on the California-Nevada border, and then shot south to Laughlin and came across to Williams and went up to the South Rim.
Okay.
Did you go through after the Grand Canyon? Did you go through Flagstaff?
No, because we needed to get to Salt Lake City to get some an expedition rack for our truck. So we went straight north, went through Bryce Canyon, the Zion area, went all the way up to Salt Lake City, got the equipment for the truck, and then shot back to Moab and did Arches and hung out in Moab for a while.
Now I know you were streaming from Arches.
Arches was my favorite part of the entire trip.
Yeah, I think Arches definitely took the cake for us. We really loved the Moab area too.
Yeah.
Did you stop in Page, Arizona by chance?
I don't believe so.
Oh, that is two of the greatest things that, and a lot of people don't know about it. Antelope Canyon, yeah, and Horseshoe Bend.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Those are two places that are on my bucket list.
So now that you guys have done this and you got some attention for doing it, are there any plans to do something like it again?
Yeah, we definitely want to do it. I actually, when we returned home, so I used to be a defense contractor. I worked for a big defense company for many years and was very consumed in that. But it's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when we got back, I left my corporate job to pursue our own thing and try to get back on the road and travel. So we have been in talks with a couple people. Nothing that we can publicly talk about, but we do want to get back out there. We do want to travel, and our big thing is we want to encourage other people to travel, because I'm a big believer that travel is some of the most important education that you can receive.
Absolutely.
I think it's overrated. So what's one of the lessons you've learned doing this?
Well, the cross-country trip, if we were to go back on the road as much as we would like, we would have to step up our trailer game a little bit. With the dogs, it just doesn't cut it. I think if it was just me and Katie, we could probably swing it, but so we're probably looking at getting a bigger travel trailer to pull behind our truck. Not going real big or anything, but just big enough to have a little bit more space with the dogs. I think that was the biggest lesson learned from this.
Well, that, and I mean, we were really organized, but when we didn't stay at the places that we were camping at for very long, so we had to unpack everything that we needed and then repack everything the next day. And that is exhausting when you're doing it for almost 2 weeks. So I would say that if we do it again, I would like to stay at places longer so that we can actually go and explore those places and be a little more organized and have everything set up.
What is your ideal RV? If money was no option, what kind of RV would you want to be road tripping in?
I mean, if money was no option, probably a big earth roamer. I think the 24-foot earth roamer. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with the earth roamers?
I don't even know what that is.
It's basically it's an expedition RV that is based on a 550 Ford chassis. They're built to basically go anywhere. They hold 120 gallons of fresh water, run on solar. You can take them anywhere, but they're very, very expensive.
I'm looking at it right now. So it's just like a real beefy one of those, I don't know what you'd call it, but those campers you put in the back of a pickup truck, but on steroids.
Oh,
Yeah.
like a lane?
I'm going to suggest an alternative, and this is based on an experience that I had in 2010 in the North Island of New Zealand. I rented a spaceship, which is it's a brand name, and it's a converted minivan that's been converted into an RV, and so it drives like a minivan, so it's really not too bad to drive, and it's, again, an efficient use of space. It might have a problem with the dogs, but it is nice for those people who don't want to do the big RV. This will be one of my tips for the day. And Spaceships has not come to the U.S., but their competitor, Juicy, Jucy,
Yeah, I know.
has started renting in the U.S. And so you can rent an RV in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, or some other destinations that is a minivan converted to an RV. They're an interesting size for people who don't want to be driving the big thing down the road.
Okay, but now if you're converting a minivan, why don't you just buy a Class B Sprinter?
Because that would be human slavery, and that's illegal.
I've actually
perhaps that's not what perhaps you're talking about a different kind of Sprinter than I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I'm talking about like Mercedes does a Sprinter van. It's Class B, so you're driving it, but there's no cab over, so it does look like a large minivan.
But how large?
It looks like a normal size van, but it's decked out.
This is actually smaller than that. This is more the size of a minivan than a van. But it has the stove and the refrigerator and a double bed in the back and all those sort of things.
All right, Chris, I'm going to look up the Spaceship just like I looked up Earth Roamer, which looks like the ultimate survivalist vehicle.
I'm heading a different direction. I will admit that.
That's the problem. I've seen a lot of the Juicy RVs, especially cruising all over the country, and they're all over the place. Our problem is we spend when we're really out traveling, we spend more time off road than we do on pavement, and we get really far out there. So we have to have really good suspension, really good tires, high clearance. That's like our trailer. Our trailer's lifted. It has air ride suspension. It's got off-road tires and everything, and it's got armored if it takes some rock hits. So that's a big factor when we're looking at things to live in when we're going traveling.
So when you say armored in case it takes some rock hits, you're thinking of unruly natives and things like that, just in case people start building the RV with rocks.
Every now
if you cleaned up your language on the podcast, you would not have these problems.
This very good point. Very good point.
Cody, when you're talking about off-roading, are you preparing for civil unrest and economic collapse?
No, I think I probably went down that rabbit hole for like 3 months, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. But no, it's just like, so for example, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Saline Valley Hot Springs in Death Valley National Park. Not very many people make it there. It's about 70 miles from the nearest paved road and about 100 miles from any kind of civilization. So we're just looking to be prepared when you go out that far, especially in Death Valley, for numerous amount of days. You need water, you need solar power. There's a lot of supplies you need, and you definitely don't want to get out there and get a flat tire. So I mean, you run into people like that. Like last time I was out at the racetrack in Death Valley or out at the Saline Valley Hot Springs, I ran into a guy out there in his Mercedes from Japan, and he had 2 flat tires and had no idea how to change them. And luckily we came by and we got out and did it for him and everything. But that's the kind of, you don't want to get in those kind of situations.
Now, please tell me you're going to leave the dogs somewhere when you do that kind of travel.
No, we take them with us.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you carry all that water?
The trailer has a 37-gallon freshwater tank with a 6-gallon hot water tank, and we carry several extra gallons of water. And if we needed to, the rack that we have on our truck, we can put really big water gallons on it too.
I'm looking at the price of these Earth Roamers. These are not cheap.
They're crazy
Hey,
expensive.
Jen said if there was no money involved, money wasn't.
$415,000 is the price tag I saw. I'm sure you can get a couple used ones.
The range I'm seeing is $260,000 to $600,000.
I think I'd do that cruise that Jenna was talking about. Cruise.
Surprise port for $1,200 a night.
Yeah.
That's more expensive than those crazy ass RVs with the like a bus, and then they will tow another smaller RV behind it, and then they go up and down, and they expand outward, and people live out of them.
Yes, those are Class A's, Gary.
Yeah, that's wow. You could get one of those and then tow one of these behind it, and then you could have an RV with your RV.
Land Cruisers are a little bit cheaper, and they're bigger too, and they're about as capable.
Yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't get a Jeep and a tent.
Because we live on the East Coast, and I can't stand being the humidity and everything. So on the West Coast, I wouldn't mind sleeping in a tent at all. I will completely admit that I hate camping in a tent on the East Coast in the middle of the summer. I can't stand it.
True story.
I'm finding there's also these places now. I think they're what are they called? I think it's hotels where you can actually stay for the night. So.
Yeah, hotel. Well, it was my birthday this weekend, so I learned a new word. It's called transitional camping, and so I took my.
Is that being homeless?
Very close. So I took my 30-year-old Class C cab over Lindy by Skyline, fresh out of the mechanic's shop with a $600 brake job. And I know that doesn't compare to the Earth Roamer, but I had to get it done. And so I got up at 5 in the morning. I was actually at the campsite at 5:15 in the morning down in San Elijo. It's down by Cardiff in Southern California, just right by Encinitas. And it is a well-known campground because it's right on the beach. So you've got this gorgeous beach on one side, and then here's the transitional part. Lovely restaurants and coffee houses and shops on the other side. So I got the spot by going at 5:15 because they book up 6 months in advance for the weekends. And they carry a few walk-on spots. So I was number 2 in line, and luckily we got it. And so we had a combination of going out to eat and hanging out at the beach and then spending the night in the motorhome at the campground.
That just sounds like you can't afford a motel.
You know what? It's suburban adventure, Gary.
I would do it.
That is an oxymoron.
I was still trying to parse the whole Class C with the 1.5 gainer with the twist or whatever the first part of the sentence was.
The cab over?
Cab. Oh, so Class C meaning that I only need a Class C license to drive it?
I don't know. Maybe Cody and Katie know why they're called this. I just know they're A, B, and C. A has no bed over the top. It just looks like one big rectangle.
Okay.
And then Class B is the van with the beds inside, but it drives like a car.
Okay.
And then the Class C is sort of like the Ford or Chevy truck with the bed over and then the RV. So it's a motorhome. You're driving it. It's not a trailer.
Got it.
And then there's the fifth wheel where it's a trailer attached to the truck.
Right.
And it's big.
That is...
Right? Was that right, guys? Something like that?
Well, a fifth wheel isn't necessarily just a trailer that's attached to a truck. A fifth wheel is a trailer that attaches to the fifth wheel in the bed of the truck.
Right.
Where a trailer,
instead of a trailer hitch
behind a truck is it's called a travel trailer.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know what to call that thing that's inside the truck.
A fifth wheel is also me when I go out to dinner with my married friends. All right, ready to go on to our picks of the week?
I think I did mine already.
Well, you got to do it again. You're picking another one. You got to be official here.
Well, I will do the trip that I just went. I did an uncruise. I was invited by Uncruise to go up and join them in Alaska. This is a small boat cruise in Alaska, and so you don't dress for dinner, and there is no bingo. That you can't buy Tanzanite on the ship. You can't do an art auction. It's 86 passengers, I think, total on the boat, and they have an easy dock on the back, so they do a lot of kayaking, some paddle boarding, and a lot of hiking and bushwhacking. So it's really kind of more...
Sounds like an expedition ship.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yep.
Sounds cool.
So,
That sounds great.
Did they serve 7-Up on the ship, on the uncruise?
It served 7-Up on the... I did not have a 7-Up on the ship.
So they served the Uncola on the uncruise.
It served on the Uncola on the uncruise. That is true.
So how much do those itineraries go for, Chris?
This one was about $4,700 per person for this itinerary. We did book another cruise on them, which is the Baja cruise, where you go and either swim with whale sharks or go out there when the... I think actually you do swim with whale sharks, or you go out there when the whales are calving in your kayaks, because Joan really wants to do that. That one's a little less expensive. I think that
I would love to do that.
3,000, but
3,000, and how long is it?
7 days. But it was great fun. The crew was amazing.
Did you see any kids?
No, we did not see any kids. We did see. The age range was from 20s to 70s, probably. We weren't the oldest person on the ship by any means. We were probably in the younger third, but obviously everybody a little more active and adventurous. At one point, we went on a bushwhack. So you're going for a hike, except there's no trail. Except I think that when we ended up on a game trail, and one of the people who was with us, I'm sure she was somebody's grandmother, and she was having no trouble at all keeping up. And I'm thinking, you are awesome. I want to be you when I am your age. So
I had my trip to Antarctica. There was a woman on the ship who was 90.
Wow. Very cool.
Can't take it with you. I'll go next, and this is something we've talked about before, but there's kind of an update, and we haven't done a real show like this in a while. So Adobe has this thing now called the Creative Cloud, and they offer a really good deal where for basically $10 a month, you can get Lightroom and Photoshop a package deal. And Lightroom normally runs for, I think it's like $140 or something if you buy it brand new, and the updates for like $70 or $80, and then when a new Photoshop comes out, that's like $600. So with the Creative Cloud, it basically, when they send out a new update, which happens, I don't know, sometimes on a monthly basis, you just get the updates automatically. So it's just a subscription, and there's no version, and it's called Creative Cloud. But there wasn't a Lightroom version of Creative Cloud until recently. So they've just come out with Lightroom 6 and concurrently came out with Lightroom Creative Cloud. So you can now get a Creative Cloud version if you have the Creative Cloud subscription, which means that your Lightroom will basically just be updated all the time. And the pricing of this is such that if you are a regular Lightroom user, or you're editing photos on a regular basis, you're almost crazy not to get the subscription because it's just that cheap. Getting both Lightroom and Photoshop as one sort of package deal is a really good bargain. So my tip is Lightroom Creative Cloud, which I use pretty much every day now that I'm in Wisconsin trying to plow through all the many tens of thousands of photos I still have to do.
Yes. So after you say all that, this is for photo editing.
Yes.
Right.
If you didn't know what I was talking about, you don't have to worry. It's a self-correcting
photo editing and photo management. Lightroom also lets you manage those thousands of photos.
Although, honestly, I never really use it for that, just because I do it off my laptop. So I think if I had a real desktop computer, I probably would, and a Drobo or something. Jen, do you have a pick for us this week?
I do. I'm going to give 2 picks. Since we are talking so much about RV travel, I'm going to recommend the website rvshare.com, so that if you just want to test out this lifestyle, you can rent someone's RV kind of like you would Airbnb. So if they have any RVs that are around your where you're located, you can just rent them. So say you want to buy one, but you don't know if you want to buy a Class C or a Class A or a Class B. Try them out. RVshare.com. It's the Airbnb of RVs. Now, but I also want to tell you about a little family travel tip. The National Geographic Kids Almanac 2016 came out. And Cora is super into Nat Geo Kids right now. They've got everything from magazines to little leaflets, little books on different animals, animal stories, you name it. Nat Geo Kids, they're everywhere. But the almanac is really cool. So if your kids have not taken any big trips yet, or you want to get them ready for it, I really like this almanac because it has all sorts of. I mean, first of all, it's loaded with two things: photos and facts, and they're like little bite-sized chunks. So in the way back, you've got wild vacation, quizzes, cool vacations, roller coasters, cool things about Buckingham Palace, national parks, and then they go over the United States, different countries, and all these different cultural things to do outside, but they're all in little bite-sized chunks, which, if your kid is reading, they can just get all this little info, and it can sort of light a fire for different places, sometimes not just by facts, but also through the animals that they're talking about. So, yes, the 2016 National Geographic Kids Almanac, but really anything by Nat Geo Kids is really fantastic.
Do you remember National Geographic World?
Yes!
That was the kids magazine before they rebranded it as this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone knows it. I have a huge collection of National Geographic stuff.
Do you still have it?
Oh yeah, it's sitting not far from where I'm sitting right now. And so I have a ton, not only of the National Geographic World, but before World, they used to have this thing that they would, a weekly like news bulletin that they would send out to schools. And this was in like the 50s and 60s. And I bought off eBay once like a big collection of these things. There were hundreds. And they used to have like the Scholastic Bulletin or something they would give out at school. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
It was like that, but it was for National Geographic.
Wow.
So, yeah, they've been doing kids stuff for quite a while.
Well, the new stuff is really working for Cora, and she's 6, and she's got to be on the bottom end of the age. You could age up quite a few years with these guys.
All right.
Very cool.
You guys have anything for us?
Yeah, I'll throw out, I've been really getting into this app called Hey Let's app. You can find them on Twitter at Hey Let's app or heylet'sapp.com. It is a app that you can share experiences or places that you've been, and you can also search experiences like around your area or somewhere you're going. And it's something I've kind of been looking for a long time, because I'm not a big fan of things like Yelp, because it's only restaurants really, or commerce stuff. With Hey Let's, you can say you want to go for a hike, or you're looking for somewhere to go to dinner in a new city, or you want to go rent a boat wherever you are. You can do that on Hey Let's, and other people put those experiences on there and talk about what they liked about it, some tips for you to do while you're there. And it's just a really positive app, and it will let you find a lot of really creative things to do in your area or somewhere that you're traveling.
Excellent.
And I would also add, being the dog lover of the couple, I guess, place for you to take your pets would be either Dog Vacay or Rover.com. I'm a dog sitter for Rover.com. I have a background check and everything. It's a great place if you don't want to take your dog to be boarded in a kennel by itself.
So wait, they had to do a background check to watch a dog?
They don't. No, they don't have to. You can offer to do it anyways. It gives your customer more peace of mind that I'm not letting some serial killer watch my dogs. So that's important to me, at least.
Most serial killers kill humans, though. I mean,
No,
if they're a dog serial killer,
They
that's
start with dogs. They start with dogs. This is actually true.
That's how
They
Dexter
do.
started. Dexter got started with animals.
It's true. They start with the animals first.
I just used dog vacay for a 3-day thing. I loved it. I don't think we'll get invited back.
You kill a dog.
Cooper's pretty hyper. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Katie, when you finish, when the dog owner comes back from their trip and comes to pick up their dog, if you liked them, wouldn't you say, "Oh, call us anytime. We loved him"?
More or less, yes.
Or something to that effect, where there would be an invitation to return?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get that.
Yeah, more or less. But at the same time, at least for me, the last 3 sits that I've done, they've said it to me before I've said it to them. Like, "Oh, we plan on using you again. You were great." That kind of thing. So it kind of opened that dialogue, too, at the same time.
Maybe you were supposed to compliment them, Jen, and they're upset.
Well, I said that I was going to give them a good review, which I still need to do. But, yeah, I was, anyway, he's getting better.
We gave them our dog, and it didn't die. 5 stars.
So the next version of this, in my prediction here, is, you know how we did I talked last time about Flight Car, that I dropped off my car at the airport and then they try and rent it out.
Yeah.
You dropped off your dog, and then as travelers come who are dog people, they then borrow your dog to go.
I like it.
It's a
The
thing.
sharing economy can only grow. So
It'll happen.
I wrote about Flight Car, like, I don't know, over a year ago, but you actually used it? What was your experience, Chris?
Well, it worked well for me. They actually didn't end up even renting it out, but I basically got to park at the airport for free, and they washed my car. So it's like, that's the worst thing that can happen. You know,
my gosh.
that's not too bad.
That's fantastic.
So I parked at the San Francisco airport or nearby for free, and if they had been able to rent it out, I would have made a couple extra bucks. You actually don't make that much money on the car rental. It's really just saving you money on the parking. That's the big advantage.
Nice plug.
So, and they come and they pick you up, and they have like an Uber-like app that lets you know when they're coming and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice. I would do it again.
It's only available in a few cities. It's available in San Francisco and where else? Atlanta.
It's available in I think it's a couple dozen cities now.
Oh, did they get up to a dozen? That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Oh, great.
But it's still relatively small compared to the number of airports just in the U.S. even.
When I reviewed them, I think they had 2 or 3 cities.
Yeah, it's gone up from there. I'll double check quickly.
All right, then. Why don't we start to wrap things up? Chris, what's new in the Amateur Traveler this week?
We didn't do a show last week, actually, but the last show we did was on the Amateur Traveler trip we did to southern Morocco, which we did a small group trip with 11 people to southern Morocco, including 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Gary, Ait Ben Haddou and Essaouira, and camping in the Sahara and going up to a jeet in a small mountain village, a homestay. Great time, and I actually interviewed almost everybody else who was on the trip with me for that show.
Excellent. Although with all the traveling you've been doing, I think you may have lost your amateur status. I think the NCAA is going to have to get involved.
It could be. I'm still an amateur because the word amateur means, from the Latin, what? To do something for the love of it. So I still love it.
Yeah, I think there's some athletes that may question that. Jen, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at @JenLeo and on the LATimes.com travel website for my WebBuzz column.
Excellent. Cody and Chris, where can people find you online? Or Cody and Katie, I'm sorry. Where can people find you online?
You can get me on Twitter @TheCodyVision as well as Instagram. The podcast is brppodcast.com, and you can also find some of our writings and trip reports on millennialceo.com.
And are you still meerkatting?
Yeah, I actually just meerkatted a couple hours ago.
What's your handle?
Oh, I'm at the Cody Vision on Meerkat as well.
My Twitter handle is at KatieS914, and Instagram it's at Katie_S914.
And then, Jen, to answer your question, Flight Car is now in 14 cities.
That's terrific.
And you can find me now on iTunes. By the time most of the people hear this, my new podcast should be up on iTunes that I'm doing with CBS Play It Podcast Network. It's called The Global Travel Conspiracy, and it'll be a weekly show. I've just recorded episode 0, which will kind of be the introduction to the show and what it's all about. And I'll be recording a bunch of episodes in the next coming week, so check it out there, subscribe, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, and all of that. What?
Well, I would congratulate all 3 of you for doing your first podcast episode, but really, it's not worth doing it until you get to 10. So,
Gary, what's it about? You didn't say what it's about.
Travel. The global travel conspiracy.
Well, is it just you talking, or are you going to have guests, or what?
A little bit of both. First episode 0 is a monologue. I'm currently talking to some people right now to have them on the show, but I'll do a little bit of everything. I have some portable equipment they gave me, and I'll be interviewing people I meet on my various trips.
Okay.
So right now it's mostly going to be people you meet in your mother's basement.
Yes, and on Skype. But there's a good chance I may be going up to Torringap Mountains National Park in northern Labrador in August, and they actually have Aboriginal people up there that kind of run everything, and they protect you from the polar bears, which actually do attack people. It happened last year. So interesting things like that. And basically, the thing is, I do not want to talk about airlines and hotels. I think that's pretty much the governing philosophy, because I find them extremely boring. And I really want to talk to the people that are out doing stuff that are kind of entertaining. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Sounds great, Gary.
By the way, if anybody who is listening to our show happens to be in travel PR, I will be speaking at the PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America Travel and Tourism Conference, coming up here in 2 weeks in Lexington, Kentucky.
What's your topic, Chris?
Was originally going to be on a panel of how to pitch travel podcasters, but they could only find me. So, so it turned into pitching travel journalists in various media.
All right. Okay, then, until next time, get yourself a really teeny tiny trailer, stick 2 big dogs in it, and get outside and go see the world.
That's right.